I'm Jared Hernandez. I'm a writer who's been working on a project about the history of the Los Angeles rave scene with my co-producers Danny Bailez and Josh Dejan. One of the people we had the privilege of interviewing was DJ Reza, who recently passed away. He was truly a legend in the rave scene, and in honor of his memory, we wanted to release our conversation with him. Rest in peace, Reza, and thank you for everything you did for us.
Well, we remember we partied to your stuff a lot of times, so we had a lot of good times.
That's awesome.
So, Reza, just for editing purpose, can you tell us your first and last name and who you are to the LA rave scene?
My name is Reza Garami. I go by DJ Reza. I'm one of the early original LA pioneer promoters that started up the dance music scene here in Los Angeles, that expanded Southern California and went to the rest of the world. I do events all over the world, including Hawaii, Mexico, Miami, all over. And I DJ all over as well. And I still keep it real, keep it underground. It's all about having fun and bringing people together for the music. You know, it's about living life and enjoying the best parts of it.
I love that. We like to start out asking, how did you first become aware of the rave scene here in LA? Like, what was the first thing that drew you to the EDM? Was it the music? Did you see a flyer? Like, what drew you into the rave scene?
You know, I first started going out to backyard parties when I was in high school. Warren High School in Downey, to be specific. And I would get flyers, or I'd hear about these raves. I would hear about Frankie Bones and these storm raves in New York. And I was very intrigued. And during that era, the techno scene that was out, Moby was very influential, Prodigy. There was a lot of artists that had crossed over to where they're being played all over. And the music went from being just hip house to house music, from disco to house music, from techno to house music, from 70s to house music. It seemed like house music took over the dance music scene in the underground. I remember one of the first events I ever went to, it was the Apartments, and it was April LaRue was one of the promoters. And she's passed away now, but Fabian was DJing, DJ Fabian, who's one of my favorite DJs ever. And I look up on the DJ booth, and I see next to Fabian in the go-go box is George Michael, go-go dancing. And so, you know, and Fabian's playing house music, acid house. And I fell in love with house music. I mean, I was listening to disco. I was buying records back in the day. There were more disco or freestyle, or what we call in LA Aquanet music. And then having heard all that music, I would hear of Miami doing the same thing. So like Miami bass, which eventually developed to being breakbeat or freestyle, and artists like Trenier or Cynthia, Johnny O, kind of that music became so powerful, Stevie B, and it crossed over into what became house music. And house music took over.
I hear a lot of the DJs of that era, house was the thing that grabbed them first. So what was it like searching out? You hear this music, you go to this party, and did it grab you immediately where you're like, now I got a DJ, did you enter as a party goer first, or were you DJ right away?
I was a party goer at first. At heart, I'm a party goer. At heart, I'm a person of the people. I want to always be in the crowd and seeing what the crowd goes through and kind of get the experience from the dance floor, kind of feel the vibe of it wherever you're at, and take in your environment around you and see. You know, I always think that people make the party, first of all. You can have an empty room with no lights and just the sound system. If you've got the right people there, it's a great party. And that's what's always mattered. The production's great. It intensifies. The production's great when it's choreographed, which is something the U.S. kind of learned from Europe. And that happened in the early 2000s when really a lot of the U.S. promoters went to Europe and saw that they're producing more Cirque du Soleil type events where the music and the production went hand in hand. Everything was choreographed to where when something happened to the music, the lighting happened, and it was kind of more of a show. it went from being an event to a show. And a lot of the artists, they transformed from just being DJs to being performer DJs.
One thing we love to talk about is just these early days. What was your earliest? Your first rave? You said was the April LaRue, the one with Fabian.
It was a club night. It was an after hours night. My first raves back in the day. I mean, the first rave I ever did was the Love Festival, which was in September of 1992, and I was still in high school, about to graduate. And we had Ernie Munson, Doc Martin, Barry Weaver, and we had Louis Lovebump doing a live performance. And it was what used to be called the Compton Swap Meet. They called it the Long Beach Swap Meet. It's changed now. I think it's been developed to apartments now. But we did an event there. And that was my first major event. I had done other parties. Myself and Herrick Hell and Louis ELO, we had all partnered up and we're doing rave events in warehouses. We did events like the Power Plant at Transition Skate Park, and we did events at the Palladium. I don't know if this is all ages podcast. Our events used to be called the Fuck Parties. So we did a series of those fuck parties. And this logo, the whole fuck party came from no school on Monday. So we'd say no school on Monday, it's a fuck party. And that slowly developed to become the Love Festival in 1992. We started off in backyards in 91, early 91. And I used to have print shop class at Warren. And so I'd go to school, and my second period class was print shop. On Monday, we would decide we're going to do a party on Friday. We were doing the warehouse parties. We'd go find a warehouse somewhere in Wilmington, like somewhere in what they call Vernon or some of the cities in east of LA. And we would design a flyer, come up with a name, a really cool name. We kept it very vibey. We'd do events like Electricity or Power Plant. Come up with very vibey names that had a lot to do with techno music and the type of events we were doing. Radiation. Things that had to do with the vibe of the events, but also flyers that would be catchy. We would do glow in the dark. I know I used to design flyers for everybody when I had my print shop second class at Warren. Everybody would come to me, hey, Reza, help us design flyers. And I knew this program called Type Styler, where no one uses that program anymore, but all the original flyers from like 90 to like 93 were all made on Type Styler. And so many different scenes came out of Warren High School and that whole, what I call the East Side area, Warren, Southgate, Bell Gardens, Norwalk, Bellflower, Pico Rivera, Whittier. That whole area of town really had such a strong influence on the dance scene in the early days that the people on the west side, so people from like Venice or Malibu or Santa Monica, Hollywood, they would say, oh, it's an East Side scene. And we didn't really, for us, that was being a little prejudiced, because for them to say East Side meant like they're talking about Latinos, because we came from a mostly Latino influenced neighborhood. And so we didn't like to hear that East Side. And when I started Go Ventures in 92, one of my missions was to kind of break that, to break any type of segregation and make it to where everybody, doesn't matter where you're from, you all felt comfortable. And I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, green, alien, whatever. When you're in the events and you're on the dance floor, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's where you're at. It's about the music. It's about having a good time. It's about showing each other love no matter where you're from, and kind of making the best of your nights together and taking care of each other. We did Go Ventures for so many years. We had so many events. We've had over 1 million people go through our doors. Events like the Love Festival, Monster Massive, Together as One, California Collective, encore. We did a lot of events, and all of our events were successful because we kept them all about the real vibe. It was always about the music, how it's being programmed, the DJs we'd have, the way we would set up our sound systems and lighting, the way we would respect people that came there. From the time that you parked, when you went to our events, we took care of you, till the time you got back in your car. We felt that we're responsible for your entire experience, not just what's happening on the dance floor, your experience at our event from the time you park your car to the time you get back into it. We can't control the freeways and the streets. If we could, we would, but we didn't.
I've heard, it's interesting that you talk about how the southeast side kind of set the vibe, and then it was kind of emulated by the west side, because Theo was talking about how early on in his raving days, he would find they would give the west side party flyers and the east side ones, and they would tell you they would kind of make them look like they were different parties, and then they'd end up being at the same place. So now people think of raves as a very diverse place where all types of people are allowed. So I think that's what would you say? What about being the southeast side of LA? What do you think about those ravers made it that they were so impactful to the rest of the city?
Well, they came out in herds. They would come out in mobs. They would come out so deep that you couldn't deny it. At the end of the day, the dance music scene was made by party people for party people. And it was always about having a good time. It's been influenced by music. It's been influenced by culture. It's been influenced by art. It was influenced a little bit by drugs. It was influenced by a lot of things, but most importantly, it was influenced by music. The music's what really brought people out. And when you had big tracks happen, big songs dropping, more people would come out. And depending on how you did your events and how you promoted, you draw more people. And obviously, as a promoter and as a DJ, knowing what was going to be hot next, we had an influence over knowing what's going to be busy and what's not. So we would schedule or program our nights to be choreographed. I'll use that word, so that people have that amazing experience, and then it gets later into the hours, how it goes deeper into the after hours vibe, and all the way up to the morning. And in the morning, the sunrise sets were always special. Back in the day, we used to have events even, Together as One that was at the Coliseum in the Sports Arena in 2001, went till 6, 7 in the morning. Back then, we would fight for restrictions. We would fight for our right to party, and we would force the city to let us go later. And little by little, I don't know why, but the city fought back. And I think a lot of it has to do with resources. They just didn't want that many people out in those type of hours that late in the morning. But, over the years, the people always predicted the party.
Mm-hmm. The promotion stuff, we've spoken to a lot of DJs already, and a lot of them, some threw parties, most didn't. So I'm really curious to know a lot about the promotion side of it, because me, as I would just go and party. So like for me, it would be like, okay, I heard about this flyer. Like I see the flyer. I'm at the Masterdome one night. I get a flyer for a party a month from now. What most of us just kind of, for the average person, it's just, okay, what am I going to wear? What am I going to take that night? What kind of money am I going to have? Like it's more of the preparation for. What was the prep like behind? You kind of went into it with the lineup, which I want to go into as well. But what was like the week before your party like? What was that week like for a promoter?
Well, the week before the party was always about reconfirming all the production, making sure everybody was scheduled on point. Promoting an event changed during my many years of doing events. Obviously, in the early days, it was all about flyers. and passing out flyers and having big street teams. And then, we had voicemails and hotlines that people would call eventually. People would call the same numbers looking forward for the next event. That worked. And sometime in the late 99, early 2000 came websites, the internet. And so the whole demographic of promoting millions of flyers or hundreds of thousands of flyers or 10,000 flyers changed. And it was more about making sure that you have a strong internet presence. We went from street teams to internet teams to having lots of people online promoting and getting big networks together. There's a lot of sites. There was a lot of sites back in the day, whether it was Rave Links or Groove Tickets or, SoCal Raves, or there's so many websites that you had to be on. You had to have your position. Now it's Instagram, TikTok. Now it's Facebook, obviously. But that changed over the time. They weren't around from the early days. That's just a more recent. And most companies still make flyers. I always think that making the flyers gives people that creativity, something to hold on to remember, like a piece of art from the culture. And we would put a lot of money into artists like Stan Endo, who was our main flyer designer for mostly all of our flyers for the early years of doing Go Ventures and Monster Massive. The art's really important for us. It's kind of having the vibe of your party kind of explained from the second they see an invite. Then taking that vibe from the flyer and making it the vibe of the event. So kind of choreographing on your brand, on your name. If you're going to call something the Love Festival or call something Monster Massive, then you got to make it a Monster Massive. If you're going to call something Together as One, it's got to be about Together as One. So you build on your brand, build on a vibe, and make everything come together. It's all about till the first beat drops. Show night.
Audio is good so far? Okay. Just making sure with all the noise. So yeah, that's really interesting. I like I said, most of us just kind of show up to the party and just have fun there. So you were talking about the art. What was that like? Were you the person who would think of the designs a lot of the time, or was it like a seasonal thing? Like what would come first, the chicken or the egg on these designs?
I think a lot of times we would get together and just, have what I call just the meeting of the minds, the brains at work, and everyone would kind of put in their input. Because the more minds, the better. The more people involved, the better the product's going to be. And the more creativity comes from a lot of people working together for the same goal. And creativity, sometimes, I would influence certain things, but a lot of the influence came from designers. Our designers came from DJs, came from people that would do production, people that set up production, people that would do work for us that were a part of our team, whether it was our production team or our promotion team. We would all work together to kind of create a vibe that has to do something special or taking things to a limit over and above what was already there. We always wanted to outdo ourselves. One of our biggest fears was, when do we get to a point where you can't outdo yourself? That's where we looked at our competition, and till this day even, we're still kind of waiting for people to outdo what we did. For so many years, we did so many epic events, and we had so many people that were just so blessed to be a part of, and for us, so blessed to have them a part of our events. So many people attended. We created so many memories together, so many influential nights, and we helped promote so much music and so many memories of just great nights of people coming out and leaving everything behind and just dancing and having a great time and going home no matter where they came from, east side, west side, south side, we don't care. You're coming there, you're going to have a great time, you're going to go home, and you're going to have the best night of your life, and that's what matters.
Yeah. So you mentioned having teams. What was it like early on? Did you, like, you went from going to a party to becoming kind of like you got into the music, you started throwing your own parties. Did you ever envision your Grow Ventures becoming this thing where you have a team? Did you ever envision it being a job? Or what was that process kind of like?
I always say I'd be doing what I do even if they didn't pay me. And I was blessed to where we were making a lot of money by being successful, by good business tactics, by keeping to our word and being able to do so many events that people were actually so happy to go to, that people would tell their friends. And from one person, they would invite 10 more people. So we went from having 2,000 people to 20,000, 20,000 to 40,000, 40,000 to 50, 50 to 60,000. One of our biggest Go Ventures events was 70,000 people. Monster Massive 2009 and Together as One 2011. Those were in the 65 and 70,000 people, which was unheard of. We competed with people like the Rolling Stone, and we had more people. We had more people than a Madonna concert, Janet Jackson. People were playing venues indoors that were only doing 18,000, while we're doing 65, 70,000 indoor and outdoor, multiple stages. So for Los Angeles, we definitely had an impact so strong that it helped create a culture that's spread around the world.
Now, that's you mentioned introducing a lot of music, and that's one thing that I feel is very important about this era. Like 20 years ago, EDM was not. It was popular, but it was still like very much a niche kind of music. Now it's.
I hate that word EDM. I look at it as it's kind of like what hip hop did to rap and that whole thing, where you just take every style of music that had a soul and a heart and foundation to it, and just put it in a pigeonhole with everything else. I mean, the dance music scene's so beautiful. If you really understand the scene, there's a trance scene, there's a house scene, there's a techno scene, there's a desert vibe, there's a after hours vibe. There's so many different scenes within the scene, drum and bass scene, that EDM is kind of just a way of saying all this music at one place.
I totally get that, and I agree. But at the same time, I do see how house 20 years ago was popular. It was kind of like, they had like the grind, MTV, the grind, and stuff, and things like that. But now it's like in commercials. It's in like drum and bass. I'm a big junglist. I love drum and bass. I've been going to Respect for years, 20 years basically, and I'm a big drum and bass head. I remember getting records from England sent to my house just so I could play them, and now I remember it being so kind of, nobody knew what drum and bass was back then, and now it's something like you turn on a video game and they're playing drum and bass. So but I do think that LA helped break that, and I do think a lot of these big massives were the reason why it's so mainstream now. So is there a specific artist, is there somebody or a genre of music that you're like, I'm glad I was like one of the early people who are putting into parties when people didn't quite get it?
In 96, I was a part of an event called Circa 96, and we helped promote it along with Tef and the CPU 101 crew. And the main stage featured Richie Houghton, Armand Van Helden, the Suburban Bass Crew, Ron Decor, all these different genres that no one would ever expect you to have on the same stage. And it went on flawlessly. And the music was so good. It went from, house, you had Doc Martin was on that stage, you had trance on that stage, and then it went to techno. From techno, it went to drum and bass with the Suburban Bass, which I think was one of the first times drum and bass was introduced on a main stage here in LA. And Ron Decor played hardcore on that stage. which was never heard of. That's for people who's really special in LA. But really, that's what LA's always been about. It's about the smorgasbord of music, is representing all styles. I was one of the first people I brought out people like Antoine Clamaran from France. I was the first one to bring out Deadmau5 back in 2008. We definitely did introduce. We were the first people to bring out to a big, massive Derek May and Juan Atkins, Kevin Saunderson. We're definitely the people to first bring out Mark Farina and Derek Carter together on 2x4. This was 1993 when no one knew who that was.
Yeah.
We did a lot of that. We brought out Mark Grant from Chicago on a big stage when no one knew about it. We did a lot of that. I mean, we're definitely blessed to be able to, as a music lover and also a person that bought records and someone who always had his ear on other scenes in other cities, wanting to kind of make sure that we're representing the music. We would reach out to these people and say, hey, we have these parties that we're doing here, and they're pretty amazing. You got to come check it out. And we would film our events, send them little clips, and they'd go, oh, my God, that's way better than where I've been. Bring me out. I'll come out. An artist would love coming out and playing. And after a few artists would come out, the word would get out. And suddenly we had the managements reaching out, artist agents, booking agents, reaching out to us, wanting to play our next events.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned showing these clips to out-of-town people. What would you think defines the LA rave scene and makes it unique as far as, like, style? Like, what is it, like, if you look at something, you're like, that's an LA rave?
The energy of the crowd. Southern California has one of the best, most energetic crowds all over the world. The vibe of the partiers in Southern California, because they just know their music. They know their music. They know how to dance. They know how to scream and get involved. They know how to create a vibe, whether they learned it from their early days of going out or their brothers and sisters or just watching it. LA has a special vibe, and we'd always say that too. It's great, but it's not like an event in LA. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to events from Amsterdam to Germany, Belgium, Italy, and the vibe of an LA event, a proper LA event, is just untouchable.
No, I love that. That's the stuff I feel that really, it shows people like it's there, because everybody thinks of the New York scene like Limelight, the bridge, or the tunnel, like all the stuff that makes New York unique, Chicago, the house scene. But LA, like people I feel sometimes can't define what is LA, and I think that's a great definition of it.
I think a lot of that comes from there's so many different camps that come out of LA that have been here for so many years that if they just unified rather than working against each other to try to distinguish themselves separately, if they unified as a city, they would take this earth by storm. And we did that a lot when we did our first Southern California United events we do on New Year's, events like Encore that we did back in 97, 98, which was, I think, the change. We had an event called Seventh Heaven, which was circa 1997, that was all over the news because some doctor was passing out some herbal ecstasy in the crowd, and before midnight, like at 11, we had to shut the party down. An event that was sold out with 10,000 tickets, 20,000 people were trying to get to it, and suddenly at 11 o'clock, there's this bad dosage of herbal ecstasy or whatever going on, and a bunch of people are dropping like flies. The fire department decides, and obviously against our will, because they were speaking to us, and we told them, we said, listen, if you shut this event down, these kids are going to riot. It's New Year's Eve. They're hyped up. They're coming out to an event. If you shut it down, they're going to riot. And whoever decided they're going to pull the plug, the higher-ups, they told us to just be quiet and go in our production office before they arrest us. And, we listened, and exactly what we said happened. So the city, we kind of put it on record when they were deciding to shut it down that, hey, this is what's gonna happen, kind of to let them know, but also to kind of cover our butts a little and say, hey, don't blame us. We told you this was gonna happen if you shut down a New Year's Eve event before midnight anywhere with that many people in attendance. And I think the police went about it the best they could, but they weren't knowledgeable yet about how to control a crowd of that size. And so it turned into a riot. And I remember the next day I had people as far as the Middle East calling me saying, Reza, I saw you on CNN last night. Are you okay? You know, shit happens.
Yeah.
We went through, the following year we came back and did the Orange Show. We did an event called Encore, which was an encore to a New Year's Eve 97 that didn't happen going into 98. And the event went flawless. We had no problems. We were in San Bernardino. The people that were trying to still go to a New Year's party a year later, a lot of people came out. We had, you know, way over 10,000 people show up. So we felt like we redeemed ourselves within a year. It took time to rebuild, obviously. Getting an event shut down is not fun. It's one of the hardest things to come back from.
So what was that time between the next event? Like, how do you guys regain the public? Like, how do you guys regain the scene's trust that way?
Well, we had other events in between. We had smaller events. We had other brands like the Love Festival. I had a club at the time that was going on called Time. That was every Friday. And little by little, people understood your side. And, you know, we'd given refunds immediately. Ticketmaster refunded. Back then it was a Ticketmaster event. And we refunded everybody right away. Because you know, we're not trying to do events that don't happen and keep people's money.
Yeah.
So we refunded people. People got refunded, and it took time, but we had a strong team. We had a huge promotion team, and so many people. I mean, I can start naming, but we had people like Marty Hill, Renee Ortega, just so many people that were around from back in the day that were our promoters, hand-to-hand street team flyer guys that got the word out. We had little teams in pockets like San Diego, we had a team. San Bernardino had a team. Orange County had a team. Santa Barbara, Freddie Anderson and that whole crew had a team. We'd have teams up in San Luis Obispo. We had a Vegas team. We had a San Francisco team, a Sacramento team. And when we would drop the flyers, they would be shipped to everybody, whether they're being sent by Greyhound bus or we're using FedEx or people are just driving, you know, we would get the flyers out to our teams, and then they would get it out to. Back in the day, there was a lot more stores. You know, we would have a lot of ticket outlet stores. A lot of those stores don't exist anymore, but there were so many. We had like 25 to 30 retail stores statewide, from all the way from San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, all the way down to San Diego, to B Street in San Diego. There'd be stores that would be putting our flyers in the windows, posters that would sell. You know, stores like in Oceanside, stores in Van Nuys like Groove Riders, stores on Melrose like Street Sounds, Beat Nonstop, DMC Records. You know, all these stores, they would get behind our events and they would help us promote to the people that are obviously in that culture because they buy dance music. And it was, everybody was fueling the fire is what I call it. So from the stores to the promoters to the different people in the scenes all over, everybody would fuel the fire to create that spark of energy.
Yeah, it was a real, the community was really thriving and big. And
we definitely, a lot more people would be a part of putting it together.
One thing I wanted to ask, because you know, when I would go to a Go Ventures event, you were one of the DJs that, you know, would always perform there, and I would see you, and I'd be, like I told you when I met you, my first Massive was Monster Massive 2001, and I was in high school, and I remember being in the crowd and just seeing the DJs, And like what's that like on the other side? What was that like for you? What's your I want to talk a little bit about your DJ journey.
That 2001 event was for us was definitely a groundbreaking event. So the venue that we were using, the LA Sports Arena, had a filming event which was called I want to say it was called Master or something Dome, Master, some type of event that was like one of those shows on TV where they have people competing.
Yeah.
So they had a production rig that was already installed of like 1,200 Verilights, which for us, our events production weren't yet at that level to have 1,200 hanging points with 1,500 lights already in the sky. I mean, you were at that event. The production was beyond any caliber that we can afford. Just to put up that lighting rig was probably the budget of our whole event. So
you guys got lucky and it was there.
We got lucky where it would have cost them so much money to take that rig down for us to be able to put ours up.
Yeah.
They said, hey, as long as you guys pay our lighting guys to come run it, we'll let you use the rig. It's cheaper that way for them. And it was called Battle Dome. That's what it was called, Battle Dome.
Yeah, I remember that show.
So, and they had TV budgets, which were in the millions.
Yeah.
We didn't have those type of budgets back then. We were lucky to see a $100,000 budget, $200,000 budget.
And what was that like as you hit the decks, you're on the table?
Well, it was great, but it also set a point mark or a standard that was very hard to achieve going forward the next year, the year after, because that event's not there no more at that venue, and they stopped filming or whatever happened. We didn't have access to that production, so we had to recreate it. Then came in us sourcing really, really smart high-end lighting companies that would help us create our events. Lighting designers, art designers, production designers, set designers. It kind of forced us, like I said, we always wanted to top our last event. So it kind of forced us to set our bar so high that even for us was tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you guys you gave everybody this beautiful thing, and then now everybody's like, now wow me more now.
Yeah, how do I get it? How do I get that? And then they would go to other events and be like, oh, your guys' event is nothing compared to the Go Ventures event.
Yeah.
Or we went to Monster Massive, and Monster Massive is way better. Even in Europe, they would see the videos from Monster Massive and go, how is this possible? Like, they were blown away.
Yeah.
And even we had to set that bar, and we did do it. Monster Massive's main room outgrew the LA Sports Arena. We definitely went to Exposition Park, and our main room started having 40,000 people in Exposition Park. I know in 2009 we had Armin van Buuren playing 40,000 people in Exposition Park, while myself and DJs like Cascade are inside the LA Sports Arena in the Saturday Night Sessions stage playing to 20,000 people. So, and that's a sold out sports arena.
Those are the crowds that I think now, like, people kind of expect, like, they go to Coachella, they go to EDC these days, and they expect the 6-figure crowds, like the 100,000, and it feels like it's normal now. But what was it like actually? Like, you as a promoter, maybe you've gone from small, like you saw the exponential growth of it, but like, what was that like every time? Like, were you like, holy shit, blown away? Like, what's that feeling like?
One of our bigger factors that we have to always consider, that I always considered, and I'm fortunate enough, I knock on wood, because in my years of doing events, no one's died at one of my events. Nobody. So having 1 million people go through your doors, not even Disneyland or Magic Mountain can take that kind of credit, where things happen. In any small city, large numbers of people, things are going to happen. Go sit in an emergency room, and you'll see, even with a city with 10,000 people, things happen. People have heart attacks. People have, accidents, drunk drivers, things happen, people die. We were fortunate where we had none of those issues at any of our events, and a lot of that has to do with the fact of whenever we planned our events, safety was one of our biggest issues, and we always had a strong push to make sure that what we did was artistic, yes, but also safe to make sure that we're dealing with everything as an organization and that we were properly staffed with knowledgeable people that knew how to handle, that would be able to take care of problems when they happened.
One thing I want to go back to, because I want to ask you, what's your favorite flyer design out of all? Do you have one for the years that you've gone back and you get where you're like, I'm proud of this design or the vibe, or maybe even how like the party turned out, like based on how like design went?
Back in the day, Monster Massive, the skull designs, I'm sure you've seen those. So many different skull designs. But one time we had our designer make like an origami house where you actually sat there and you took the Monster Massive flyer and you give it to the ravers, and it had little creases and lines. And if you actually put the flyer together, it made a little haunted house. That was definitely one of our favorite, most notable flyers. The Bloody Bear, which was, it was one of the contents that came out of our events. It's also my alter ego. I DJ with this mask on called the Bloody Bear. And we made these little bears, these Bloody Bear dolls, these little 3-inch. Frank Kozik, the artist, designed the bear. And, we had the Monster Massive skulls, whether it was the Halloween pumpkin with a knife through its head, or we had the big Japanese, sailor. And we had a lot of different artists that worked on masks, and they would turn in, and we would sit there and we'd have to choose versions, like, okay, we'll go with this one. Where we'd have like 12 different Monster Massive masks, and then we'd have meetings, sit down, and all the big shots in our crew would come together and go, okay, we like this one. And we'd vote on it. Sometimes we released four Monster Massive flyers, and they'd all be out. We had a year where the flyer looked like a Daft Punk kind of robot, and we had a girl version of like a Spider Woman / Monster Massive skull, and we did 3 different versions, 3 different color versions, because we were so undecided. We're like, you know what? Let's just run them all. We run them all. Same back, different front. Different face of the flyer, same information on the back, just a different logo and a different die-cut design of a mask. And the printers hated us because we would expect our flyers tomorrow. We would turn in these designs and be like, we need 100,000 of these tomorrow. And I know we'd make it so complicated on the printers, but they pull through. A lot of our events, that's what really helped us, is from the designers to the printers to the production to the security. Everybody worked as a family. Everybody knew everybody. And we all worked on the same goal. We knew that we're doing this in all of our benefit, not just our benefit, but the scene and the people that would come, their benefit.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting that you mentioned, because a lot what I've gotten from your interview is that it's not, yes, music is essential, but there's so much creative things that come out of the rave scene itself, whether it's the intelligent light design, the design of the flyers and the production itself, what the theme's going to be. So I think it's interesting because a lot of people, they think of just going to parties, but they don't think of all the kind of other endeavors that people take on doing this.
There's so much to putting on an event you have to think about. And for dance music, which what I call live entertainment, there's no retakes. There's no, hey, stop the show, let me put a set together. Okay, start again. There's no, this ain't right, let's stop the show. It's live. So you've only got one shot, one take. You got to do it right the first time. There's no messing up. There's no cuts. There's no re-edits. It's when the curtains open, the music drops, from the time the first beat kicks till the time the show's over, till they make you turn on the house lights or the security guards are telling everybody to get out, you got to run a live event. And so you have to pretty much have everything that happens. And there's a lot that happens at events. You know, doing an event, promoting an event is a lot easier than producing an event. Producing an event, running the production side, organizing the security, the medics, the stages, the lighting, the artists, you know, and the artists, as the years went on, you had a different caliber of artists. They wanted dressing rooms. You want to have VIP areas, backstage areas. You got to have people that are catering to the artists. I mean, it's called micromanaging a little town. And you're, as the producers, you're the government of that city. And so you have to make sure that everything's thought over.
One thing I want to kind of get into, because as a DJ, I wonder so that day of the show, you're also DJing. What's that like preparing for your set? Like, what are you the type of DJ? Because I've been asking this to all the DJs we've spoken to. Like, do you go in with a plan? Do you go like, this is my track list tonight, or do you just kind of feel the vibe? Like, how do you pick your songs for your sets?
Well, I pick my music based on what I get, which just comes from a timing era. So, like, if it's 2001 or 2008, the music that came out in 2008, plus whatever's been out since I listened to music up to 2008, you have a large selection. I never pre-program my sets. I always play to what I think is the vibe of my vibe.
What would you say your vibe is, though?
I want to party rock it. Mm-hmm. You know, I want everyone to go crazy. I used to always play closing sets at my parties. For me, that was where I was able to actually produce the event. The event would be almost closing, and now I could just go DJ. And I would have people that would look after everything. You know, a lot of people see me as the face of the event because I'm also the DJ and well known, and I don't go ventures, but there's so many people that would be responsible for our events. It's not me. I'm not a one-man army, but it took an army to make sure the events went well. And I'm just one of many people that had the same vision.
No, I think that's great because, like, with all this stuff, I do think sometimes people forget that there's so much collaboration to make an event. So I think it's great to hear somebody, especially the head, not just like the head promoter, the head of the company, give so much credit. One thing I want to backtrack about the DJ stuff, because it's interesting that you bring up how the evolution of the DJ to the almost like, I've spoken to a lot of DJs the last few weeks, and they have all kind of mentioned how the focal point went, like, 20 years ago, you would go to the party, and yes, I want to go see Reza, I want to see Theo that night, but if I'm not actively watching their set or watching them work, like, and then you're still DJing and doing events today, like, what's that like? How do you see the evolution of the DJ and how they became, how it's changing their way of being in the party?
Well, I think a lot of DJs became producers. You know, you had artists, producers like Avicii that made such an impact on the music. You had people like Deadmau5 even, Cascade, that were not just DJs, but they were producers more than DJs. And it changed, you couldn't just be a DJ anymore. In Southern California, we had one of the best DJs till this day, Barry Weaver, that, he retired, but you can ask all the DJs and they'll tell you he's the DJ's DJ. He is the god of DJs for Southern California. Barry Weaver was something that, it was our little secret in Los Angeles, and now he's living in San Diego, but Barry was something special, and DJs from around the world, they would play with Barry and they'd be like, wow. And, Barry Weaver's one of the original LA Underground DJs. He came from the same school as like DJ Dan, Mark Lewis, Doc Martin, DJs back in those days that were you know, the DJs that set the bar for DJs to come, even myself. You know,
What do you think about what was it about guys like Barry Weaver, the DJ Dance? What was it about their style you think that kind of still crosses over to what like a current guy I'm blanking on anybody like the biggest DJs right now, like even like just a few years ago, like Calvin Harris, something like that.
so I mean, it's apples and oranges. Calvin Harris was more of a producer than a DJ, and Calvin Harris makes amazing tracks. You know, he's gained notoriety because of his accomplishments, not as a DJ, but as a producer. He's produced for so many influential artists that Calvin Harris is like the Dr. Dre of dance music.
So do you really think it was going from these guys were just buying records, playing them at the party to now, do you think that's the big difference is them being a producer and that's now like kind of like what's made them the rock star today of the festival? Like kind of because these DJs now are making millions of dollars to just show up and
they're not just DJs anymore. They're music producers. They're icons. The scene has become not as basic as it used to be. It used to be just about, you know, when it came to the music, it was about what DJ you had and what he would play. Now it's about what artists you have, what songs has he made, how big are those songs, and it's what's kind of commercialized dance music, where the big artists in the dance scene are also on the radio. You hear them on television. You have crowds of people singing along to them at my daughter's elementary school, or the local quinceañera, or the pub on the corner, or the pre-music at a concert. You know, everybody's listening to the same music. That's what's made it commercialized. It's not that the music's quality has gotten commercial. It's just nowadays everybody listens to dance music.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's one of the things I think with this project is that we've seen like I said when I was in high school, I would tell people I'm going to a rave, and they would they're like, oh, I've heard Alice DJ or something like that, but they didn't quite know. They didn't know like anything else until like something like Sandstorm became huge, and it kind of took over. Now you hear it at sporting events, and you hear it at the mall. You go somewhere and they play at a rock or at any place that's like an event where they have stuff. They play music like that to pump people up.
Yeah, I mean, you hear Eric Murillo's track, it's on Disney, it's on the cartoons, and when you've crossed over that much to where your music's gotten as far as being so popular to when the Lakers score a basket, they're playing your music. Or, at football games, at the halftime show at the NFL, at the World Series baseball.
Yeah.
At everything. Dance music's definitely become the most known type of music, and rightfully so. It doesn't have a language. It crosses all barriers. The same song we hear here, the same song they hear in Brazil, Germany, Bali, India, Iran, wherever in the world, it crosses. And dance music, that's what's so special about it. They dance to the beat of the same drum.
Yeah. Like I'd mentioned to you before, the premise of what we're doing is kind of wondering, Los Angeles has a lot of influence on culture worldwide, because of Hollywood music. And I feel that the proximity to the entertainment cult, like people who I remember going to raves and seeing famous people just in the crowd, and do you think that was one of the things that helped lend dance music and just because people, you see stuff about raves on shows like the last 20 years they make, and it's beyond just like the like early stuff like Go. I mean, now it's like I think they do more authentic takes on the dance music. Do you feel like what you guys were doing influenced Hollywood a lot? Do you guys?
Well, Los Angeles is the media capital of the world. In my mind, people say it's New York. I don't. I think it's Los Angeles. We've got more studios. There's more films being thought of. It comes out of the brainchild of Los Angeles. So many studios. We're also where the capital, where all the management companies are that control most of these artists. And so when you have a city that has so much to offer at such close grasp, it's going to be so influential on the whole world. And what happens here in LA is so important. It's like it sets the bar for what's going to happen everywhere else in the world. If you're big in LA, if you can make it in LA, you can make it anywhere.
No, I totally agree. I that's why I really do feel like I look at, EDC literally spawned from Los Angeles, and Coachella as well. It's a Southern California event, but these two festivals are the big festivals nationwide now and internationally too, because people come from all over the world to go to Coachella. People come from all over the world to EDC, and I think it was the influence of this city, Los Angeles, really is what helped build those things.
It's where it started. Its roots are heavily based in Los Angeles. Its concepts, even till this day, I call Vegas LA's backyard. When I was growing up, we would all go to Vegas to party. We would also go to Mexico to party, but then it got kind of you'd have to worry about getting back after a while. It was just a little bit sketchier worrying about going all the way to Rosarito or Ensenada. And so we'd go more to Vegas. Just in the word, it's Las Vegas. LA's Vegas. It's Vegas is special. Vegas came with the money to be able to support the culture and the DJs beyond what anyone had in LA. They opened mega clubs that were pulling in artists of the highest caliber around the world, and they would have them on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nights where you can compete with that. In venues that held 3,000 to 4,000 people with lines going strong till 5 a.m. And here's another part. Drinking doesn't stop in Vegas at 2 a.m. So it was set up to party. A lot of people love going to Vegas because you could drink all night and you could party. Now you take all of it and you put it together, and you've got a recipe for some all-night mega club night and parties.
Yeah, there's definitely good times there. One question I've asked everyone that my partner and I asked, because we want to know, and I think it covers your whole rave life. What can you give us 3 snapshots, 3 moments that really stand out to you in your rave, like where you're like, these are pivotal moments in my rave career, life, however you want to call it?
I think 1992 in Seventh Heaven that didn't happen, the event that didn't happen. 2001 Coliseum Sports Arena, Together as One. 2001 Monster Massive. 2009 Monster Massive.
What was it about 2001's Monster Massive that really, like, what was that moment for you?
I mean, it was the first time that in Los Angeles 40,000 plus dance music lovers came out together, and that production was just untouchable. I mean, even to this day, you don't see that type. Maybe you see a different version of it, but nothing that and now we're talking 25 years later, 23 years later, but still to this day, back then in 2001, that was the bar was set beyond high. And the people that went to those events, they can attest. It wasn't a couple hundred people. It was 40,000 plus people. And they'll attest. Till this day, I get people saying, my God, I remember back in the days. And kids these days don't know what it's like. Or, I feel like all they do is they age me really well, where they're like, wow, you did events for 30 years now. Yeah, I feel a little older. I'm wiser, more distinguished. But I'm still a young kid at heart. I still want to go to events. I still get excited. I still get excited hearing new music, new DJs. It's all about keeping your mind open. Never feeling like you're the shit. Always be able to say, oh, I want to hear something new. Knowing that people are going to outdo you. People are going to show you something new. And keep your mind open. Be ready to learn. Because there's so many people that can teach. And teaching is not saying one person's better or one person's a student. It's about teaching each other. Like mates, like friends. Like going to school and having people share ideas. And so you have to keep your mind open. And you got to always learn. You got to take, I always said this, you got to be the cook in the kitchen that takes all the best of all the recipes and puts it together to create your own masterpiece.
No, that's great. That's a great thought, I think. And one thing I think in talking to a lot of people who, because, yeah, you might say I've been involved in the rave scene 30 years, but I think unlike a lot of other entertainment things, I think the younger people have reverence for the past, because I see it online a lot where I see footage of like an old Monster Massive, and I don't see like the younger ravers going, oh, look at how dumb it was. They go, I wish parties were like that back then. So what do you think? What do you think? I guess this is a two-part question to this is, what do you think the younger ravers can get from older ravers, and what do you think you're getting now from the new generation of kids?
Well, we didn't have the big corporations telling us what to do, and it wasn't controlled as much by companies that kind of cookie cutter everything they do. We had a more flexibility to do things more fresh, to take chances, to be able to do things that were different, special, original. We didn't have to follow the leader. We would be the leaders. We'd be the pioneers. We didn't have to look and learn. We would just walk the road and kind of teach the ones that came after us. And we would take chances. And it's about being creative and taking chances. You're going to fail sometimes. You're not always going to hit a home run. You're not always going to score a touchdown. But you learn from trying. And you learn from doing. You learn from taking chances. It also makes you stronger.
Now, I want to kind of puff your ego up here because, I do consider you and Go Ventures, you guys you're not just a legend in the rave scene. You are a legend in the rave scene, but you're also one of the pioneers, one of the people who made, a lot of the younger people do see the raves back then as very important to how things are today. Believe it or not, I think. So, what do you think? What do you give yourself? What do you think was one of the things that you gave to the scene that now is still there that people might not give you credit for, but you're like, that's something that nobody was doing before we were doing, and now it's everybody's doing. I'm sure there's stuff.
Just one thing. There's a couple more.
Go ahead.
We were the first to bring the VIP rooms, and we would do the open bars in our VIP, separate entrances. We were the first to do the really mass promotion of flyers, and the heavy promoting. Our street teams were so big. Other promoters would come to us and say, hey, can your street team help us for our events? It was so strong and spread so wide and so organized and so effective because it worked. And because it worked, our own events were the Trojan horse for showing what we did worked. And because it worked, other event promoters would say, hey, can I use your street team? They would come and see our production. Can I use your production? They'd come and see our sound systems. Can I use your sound people? Security. We'd set so many different bars so high and so strong that if you were security at our events, everybody wants you security at their events. If you were stage managers, people would hire you as stage managers. If you were promoters, street team, they would try to hire you for all their events. Go-go dancers, You know, it's about wanting to have the best people. And you can't blame other promoters because everybody wants the best of the best. And just because we don't own anybody, you know, we work with them. It's a two-way business deal. They want to work with us. We want to work with them. We're not trying to make it to where we own. We never try to monopolize. Even though the Go Ventures character was a monopoly man originally, we never really wanted to monopolize anything in the scene. It was always about, yes, other people should thrive. We should all be able to do events. There's enough dates in the year where there can be multiple events on multiple nights and they're all successful. It's about making the event better for the person, the people going, the party for the people, and keeping the people in mind. Like I said in the beginning, from the time they get out of their car and park till the time they get back in the car, their experience is in your hands. So how many people you have working your entrances, the lines, the experience inside the event, making sure you're not overcrowding any areas, from making sure you have enough room so people are all enjoying the artist that you promoted they're going to see, to making sure there's not sound systems back to back where you're hearing 3 stages at once. You know, being able to separate. One thing we always made sure of is sound systems far apart and in their own zone, to where you sitting in the back of that room, you don't hear 3 other stages, you know? And as an artist, you're not, whenever your music drops to a quiet, what I call like a breakdown, you don't have overlapping stages taking over your music. You're able to present music the way it's supposed to be. That song, in its peaks, in its, you know, in its valleys, when it goes down to silence, you should be able to experience that silence and not have other stages overpowering you. It's hard to do, especially outdoors. But we did that really well.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, people don't think about all this stuff when they go to anything. You know, they just show up and they expect, you know, let me take my drugs or my pill, whatever I'm going to be, take my drink and let me party. But they don't think about all the small details that really make up their experience.
When it comes to the drugs, as a producer of an event, you have to think about those people that do come and take drugs. You got to worry about their safety, making sure you've got medics, making sure you've got people watching for people that are passing out, making sure that you've got people that are watching for event goers that are out of control or dancing too hard or creating a mosh pit, an unsafe environment. You know, you got to really control the event. You have to keep control, and it's not easy. You got to have a lot of people working for you.
That sounds okay. Okay. Let's see. So we'll be wrapping up in a bit because I've got a lot to ask you.
Keep going. I'm good. I'm gonna tell my ride.
Yeah, let me know whenever you if you
I'm not tired at all. You're good to go.
Thank you.
I'm so glad this is a podcast. I thought you were videoing. I was like, oh man, I need to go change. I didn't even change.
Oh no, we're not doing it. We've been mostly. But my friend and I, we have a couple places we're going to take this to and show. But we might end up shooting it later at some other point. We would let you know. But yeah, if you need to...
I'm just telling them to come pick me up.
Yeah.
1 second. How's it going so far?
Sounds good.
Yeah? How's the storyline? Good?
Yeah. Everything's coming together really good.
Good. Hey, I'm ready. You guys can come when you're ready. You want coffee? Does Kim want coffee? Okay. All right, cool.
Okay, so I'll ask you a few more questions before we wrap. What are you up to now these days?
I'm a full-time dad. I have a daughter that's 10 years old, or she'll be 10 in February 2023. And she's been my life, my best production yet. And, you know, when you have kids, your life changes. For me, going to events or DJing and doing events is second place next to my daughter now. It's more about doing everything I can for her. I used to live for me, now I live for her. Life changes, but it gets better. There's an experience becoming a parent that you don't understand until you become a parent. I always tell everybody, I'm like, oh, now I know what they meant. I never knew a love, like the true meaning of love, until I became a dad. And then I understood love.
Are you going to ever, do you see yourself one day being at a point where you're like, I'm going to take my kids to a park, we'll go to events together, and do they like dance music? Are they into it?
My daughter was 7 months old when I took her to the Love Festival in Hawaii. She was on stage with me while I was DJing. And New Year's Eve 2014, I took her to Arizona and I DJ'd with her. She was about almost 2 years old. 1.5, almost 2. She was going to turn 2 in February. Or maybe, no, I think she was 1. She was 1. She was going to turn 2. Yeah, she'll turn 2 in the following February. And I DJ'd the whole night with her on my shoulders. Her mom, who's an amazing mom, came with us, and, again, the credit's not mine. It's a mom and dad thing, and I'm blessed to have such an amazing daughter, Kira, that I love with all my heart. And you don't really know the meaning of love till you have a kid, and you'll learn the true meaning of love once you have kids. I mean, other people, they learn it from their wives or their girlfriends, and I'm not saying they don't know it, but for me, I didn't know it till I had a daughter.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And what about, like, rave-wise, are you still in touch with people from how does the rave scene impact your life to this day?
I stay in touch with a lot of the promoters that are doing events these days. I guess they're the new generation rave promoters. I stay in touch with some of our old partners, whether it's Pasquale from EDC or Milo, and I stay in touch with a lot of people that I was friends with for so many years. I stay connected to the streets. I stay connected to the music. I stay in touch with the DJs. I love going out and hearing DJs on random nights where you'll catch me listening to somebody, whether it's, Paradise in the Park or special events that happen in LA, Las Vegas, Hawaii. I'll make my rounds. I'll come out for special things. But what's changed is I'm a dad now. It's more important for me to be there at my daughter's recital than it is going out to a club.
Yeah. No, I totally get those moments are irreplaceable too. You're not gonna, get a second. The same way you said with the live event, you don't get a second chance. Those events with our family, you don't get those second chances. So
you really don't, and you have to be there. And the commitment to be a dad is just a parent is a lifelong commitment. It doesn't stop. You never get too old. And I'm lucky enough to have both my parents still alive. I speak to my dad once a week, talk to my mom almost every day. And I'm blessed because of that. I say that because a lot of people, they're not able to, at my age, a lot of people aren't able to call both their parents. And for me, that's a blessing.
We spoke to a DJ. His name is John Pignato, if you know who John is.
I do.
He told us an interesting story about Go Ventures and your dad, actually. He told us that one of his first spots DJing was with the Go Ventures spot. He met your dad. He was roofing on a project for your dad, and I guess he connected with you that way.
Yes. Yes, I think he had lunch at our house. John's an amazing DJ, producer. Another talented kid that came out of LA, many years. John's a good guy, solid.
That's a funny. All these stories are very. Everyone's. The scene is a lot smaller than people think, and it's very connected.
I would say we're 3 degrees, not 6.
One thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned talking to people who are still, the new players today. Who's inspiring you by, like, whether it's musically, whether it's them promoting stuff? Who's out there, like, seeing where you're like, wow, they're bringing something new to the table?
Well, I like what Insomniac's doing. and I like what Pasquale's doing, and he's broken up his company to having smaller, more cooler underground brands. His Factory 93. I like what Kobe's doing. Kobe Denon that does the Solomon parties, and Golden Voice helps them as well. You know, I like what everybody does. I think that's what's important is you have to have variety. You have to have a bunch of people that are all doing it to build a scene. It doesn't come from just one promoter. It's not about one DJ. For it to be a culture, it's got to be a community. It's got to be multiples of everything.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I do like I always like that Masses brought all the music together, but I always like, individual nights, like, even listening to the breaks now here on this, like, it just, like, going to drum and bass nights, there was nothing better than just, seeing the people I want to see, and it's just,
you hear those artists, you hear respect.
Yeah.
Now you hear them on a main stage to 10 times the amount of people, and it's just a different experience.
Yeah.
On a sound system that's amplified 100 times. There's a whole different feel between 10 bass bottoms and 100 bass bottoms. I mean, certain music, with production and the size of the sound systems, you could change how anything sounds.
Yeah.
If you listen to a song on the radio in your car versus a song on a massive sound system, I bet you'll like it a lot more on that massive sound system. Then, amplification definitely helps. It definitely hits all your senses as a human, which is what it's supposed to do. It was made to do that.
Yeah. No, I've definitely had many religious experiences inside a bass bin at a party somewhere, and it's true. Like, you don't get that feel, just listening to it in your car or in your headphones.
It's all about the subs. Dance music is for me I say it has 3 parts to it. The foundation, which is the sub, the heart, which is the mid-range, and the high, which is the vocals.
Now, I kind of want to ask you, what's your all-time banger? What's the song that, like, would define you? Like, if you have a party, you're like, I got to play this song.
There's no one song. For me, obviously I love house music. It's a feeling. It's not one song.
What's that feeling, then? What's that one, how do you define it, if you can?
It's still undescribable. It's that feeling, and you'll know it when you know it. You'll know it when it hits, when it drops. And it's not made by just the song. It's the song. It's the atmosphere you're in. It's the vibe you're feeling. It takes a lot to get it right, which is why people have had so much problems just creating it, like mass producing it without going through the knowledge of the steps.
Yeah, it's missing the soul, the heart.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get it without the soul, without the funk, without the feel, without the energy, without the vibe. You got to have all the ingredients to get it right.
No, I totally know what you mean, because one of my favorite film directors is Stanley Kubrick, and when he was shooting Clockwork Orange, the actor Malcolm McDowell asked him, what are you looking for? And he's like, I don't know, but I'll know when I see it. So,
that's it. You can't describe it, but you know when it happens. It is that aura. It's people. I describe God that way. I've never seen God. I've never met him, but I know he exists, and I don't know what it is, but I just know. I feel it. It's that aura that I don't know what keeps our bodies together, but something does. What keeps the earth going around the universe without things smashing into it? Something does. I don't know, but I know it. Something exists.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the music. Something exists. Something, the way it's made. Something. And there's producers that learn how to copy or follow a certain threshold of here's what works. A format, but to get it right is a feeling, and a lot of people know it. It's something a lot of people understand, and a lot of people have the ear for it. a lot of people are musically blessed. Blessed is the word, because once you understand it, you're blessed. You might not be able to reproduce it, you might not be able to recreate it, but just the fact that you get to experience it makes you blessed.